Hi, I'm Alex Armbruster. I was the main John Carver stunt double in Thanksgiving, and you're watching Craven Something Scary. And there will be no leftovers.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, visitors, subscribers, patrons, and my channel members, otherwise known as my Cravenites. Welcome to Craven Something Scary, where it's all horror all the time. And guys, tonight is a doozy of a show. I'm so excited for this one. Been looking forward to it since it got set up, and we're going to have a blast. But before I bring my guests on, just a couple of things I want to remind you of. Number one, you can definitely submit your questions or comments. We're going to be primarily focusing on Founders Day. All right, the great film that is in theaters as of right now. So this is the time to get out there and see it if you haven't done so already. And submit those questions in. However, just to let you know, our time is limited. We've got about an hour with everyone, give or take. So we won't get to every question, but I'll do my very best to get to yours. But if it doesn't happen, don't take it personal. It's just a matter of time and volume and conversation. Okay, got a very large panel. But I do say this: if you have a burning question you really want answered, you can send it a super chat, and I will move you to the front of the line. And I will make sure that your question is addressed by the group before the stream ends. So there is an option and a way to do that if you so desire. And it also helps support the channel and keep the lights on. So I appreciate it as well. All right. So guys, this is exciting stuff. Okay. Founders Day is the movie that is currently out. And I have got some amazing guests to introduce. I'm going to announce them all, and then I'm going to bring them on. Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to change that. I'm going to announce them, bring them up, and I'll just keep on going. So let's start first of all with Erik Bloomquist, which is now get ready. He does a lot. Okay. He's the director of the movie, co-writer, co-editor, and he's like, that's not enough work. I need to do more. And he also plays the character Oliver in the movie. So he is literally covering all the bases. Please welcome Erik to the stream. Hi, Erik. Welcome, sir.
Hey, Steven. Happy to be here.
It's so awesome that you're here, man. I really appreciate it. And moving on, just so I can get everybody in as quickly as possible, we also have Carson Bloomquist, which is a co-writer and co-editor of the film. So both writers are on the panel tonight, which is amazing for questions, guys. And so, yes, start getting those in. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, I guess, Carson to the panel. Hi, Carson.
Hey, Steven. Thanks for having us on. Excited to be here.
Oh, man. My pleasure. Thank you. Now, next up, and by the way, there's no last and least. I'm going literally in the order that I had prepared in advance. So this is nothing. It's nothing at all about that, just FYI. But next up is Jack Lynch, who actually is the founder. And if you've seen the movie, you know who the founder is. In fact, if you've seen the poster, you know who the founder is, front and center. So we're going to have lots to talk about with his character. So please welcome Jack to the channel. Hey, Jack.
Hey, Steven. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm extremely excited about tonight. And we're not done yet. I've got one more guest for you guys. Yes, another member of the team is here, and I'm very excited. Literally the individual that brings it all to life, and it is Mike Magilnick, who is the cinematographer. Mike, welcome.
Hey, Steven. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. What a lineup, folks. I'm telling you, this is a rare opportunity to have such an amazing group of talented individuals together at the same time. So, and real quick, Val says, hello, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us tonight. Yes. All right. And Christopher says, Jack is my hero. So there you go. Ready to go.
Jack's all our hero.
That's awesome. Also, just so everyone knows, just so you guys all know, my moderators tonight, Polar's here, Val's View, and my moderators for the chat. They are going to be posting all of your Instagram handles throughout the stream. All right. So we want to drive as many folks as we can. We've already got several up already. They're already putting them up. Thank you guys for doing that, Polar. So every few minutes, they're going to continue to rotate for people that are coming in the stream constantly. Okay. So we want to get you guys follows up as well. Let's do it, guys. Everybody go make sure you follow all of them. And real quick, my buddy Knight says, an amazing group, fire. Thank you for all for being here to talk with us. All right. Very good. Okay, guys. Well, let's dive in. Okay. Now, before we get into the movie, I have a couple of questions that I would just love to ask each of you, because these are the fascinating things to me, because you guys are doing it. You're living the dream, as they say. You're making it happen in the business. So what I'd like to know, and we can start just literally with Erik and go right down the panel, one by one. I would like to know, when did the passion first begin for each of you in your respective roles that you're doing now, like in the movie? And I would just like to know, when did you know like that was what you wanted to do? Like this is where my heart is. So Erik, can we start with you and we'll just keep going?
Yeah, I think storytelling from when I was a really little kid, just corralling kids at daycare to put on little plays, and then film became a vehicle for that, probably around like high school, college that started, and then it expanded into that like daycare producer self into producing actual movies. Carson may have a similar story.
Yeah, I mean, we also made home movies, like you'd think, with a camcorder when we were young, and our friends as actors. So it would be all sorts of fun things, and that was like, the cliche, upbringing of us making movies, that we'd do it when we were later, and here we are. So
phenomenal. Now, you guys are considerably younger than I am, so whenever you say camcorder, I'm thinking of the old VHS camcorders on your shoulder. You stick the tape in. Are we going back to that, or are we going to be a little bit more newer?
Probably like one gen later, like the
what, mini DV?
That, but smaller, but pre like mini DV. So we were still using the Mike. What is it called? The yellow, red, and white.
Oh, composite cables.
I don't know.
But that would, yeah.
We were still using those.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Jack, how about you, sir? When did you have the passion that you wanted to be an actor / stunt performer? Like you just had it in your blood?
Yeah, well, similar to Erik and Carson, I was involved in short filmmaking from a super young age, but this role was as much a stunt role as it was an acting role. So that's a much newer thing for me. Probably a couple of years ago, I got on my first big set and looked around, and I was essentially looking for what department was having the most fun. And it was always stunts. So I am doing that now.
And are you having fun? Are you having fun?
Oh my God.
Okay.
Doesn't feel like work.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's the best, isn't it? That's perfect. It's what we all aspire to do, right? That's it.
Yeah.
All right. Now, Mike, how about you? Because cinematography, man, it's all very visual minded in your head, right? That's a very visual driven role specific and so important. I mean, they're all important. There's not one that's not important, but don't get me wrong. But literally cinematography, I mean, that you are presenting on the screen what we see. And so when did that start for you? When did the camera become your jam?
when I was like 13 years old, I started working at a public access station doing like camera operating for some of the shows that were coming through.
Nice.
And that was a ton of fun, but that's a very kind of different vein than where I'm at now, especially. But it was a great starting point to just learn like what angles were and how sequences were composed. But probably in college, I started to do more like narrative format stuff. And then I started breaking away and working on sets instead of going to school. And I met Erik and Carson actually shortly after graduating and coming back to Connecticut. They were one of the first things that I jumped onto was actually the trailer for this, like a concept trailer or a sizzle reel that they were shooting. And I volunteered for a day just to kind of meet them and network a little bit, and it turned out to be a pretty good idea.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. That's awesome. And that kind of, it takes me to something that I've observed a lot, when I've had guests on, and there is a common theme of networking. Like when you work with some individuals that you guys get along, you deliver in your roles, whatever they are, you want to continue to have that loyalty. You build a loyalty in teamwork. You can remember like the great Wes Craven. I remember he would have almost the same crew for like almost 20 years. He kept all of them together. So that's really, really awesome, Mike. I think that's fantastic. And who knows what the future holds. I'm gonna ask you guys about that at the end. So maybe we will know. All right, so let's get into it, guys. Let's get into it because Founders Day is the movie. It's still in theaters. And again, I want to echo to the audience, whether you're here live or if you're watching this tomorrow on the replay or next week or whenever you're watching. Check your local listings. All right, check your local listings for Founders Day. If you see it's there or within driving distance, look, if you can drive within an hour and to 2 hours, go see it. Just make a road trip, man. Go. It's worth it. Trust me. In fact, if you're going to drive a couple hours, just get double tickets and watch 2 showings. Just do back to back. And so what you get, you can soak it all in for the ride home. That's the way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
For real. No, you're welcome. Now, I want to ask you this before we get into movie specifics. What's the game plan for this after theaters? Is this going to get a physical release, or do you anticipate this being a digital only release that we can buy on digital format?
It'll be both. I think it'll be the spring sometime, at least digital, and then like a DVD Blu-ray situation to follow, and we'll try to pack that with some cool cool extras and commentaries and BTS stuff, of which we thankfully have quite a bit. So we just
good. Yeah. Good. Wonderful to hear. A lot of my audience collects physical media as well. So they get real excited when we hear that, the Blu-rays or DVDs are going to be coming out. So that's good to know.
We do too. We had a really cool release for our. I think it hasn't out in America yet, but we got a really cool like stacked German Blu-ray release of our last movie, in the Woods, that we all worked on too.
Yeah,
there's like a whole like 15-page media book, and it's just a lot going on, and a lot of stuff. It's really cool. It makes it more real if you can hold it. So we're very much in that camp too. Yeah,
absolutely. And perhaps I can have you guys back, whoever's able at some point, to talk about that movie as well. That would be a fun one to talk about too. So let me ask you guys this. I think some of the guys, I think I kind of know the answer. I'm going to skip that question. I was going to ask you, how did you each become involved? But it really does sound like it was a matter of knowing one another, right? You establishing relationships is what it sounds like for everybody. So am I wrong on that? Okay.
Yeah, no, I think we all go back quite a bit with each other and have done other projects. And so there is that. So the repertory company aspect of this, which I'm sure I'll bring up again when we talk about cast and stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Now, I'm going to have some specific questions for you, some of you individually. Then I'll have some for everybody, like just across the panel. Erik, I want to start just with a couple for you. Well, I actually no, this is for you and Carson, because Carson, you were able to make it. So for both of you, from a writing perspective, So again, on this stream, audience, we're not going to give spoilers because the movie, you just need to trust me. You need to go in and see it, not expecting anything. That's the best thing to do, because you want that. But we are going to allude to some things, but we're not going to give anything away. But 3 words come to mind, guys, for me. I've seen the movie twice, and the 3 words are twists and turns. Right? I'm gonna say twists and turns, and it makes this movie fun and horrific at the same time on many different levels. And as Carson and Erik, as writers of the film, I'm just curious, how long have you been writing the screenplay for it before you completed it? And also, were there any specific inspirations that you drew from when writing this story?
Sure. I can jump in. Yeah, we had an original draft of this. Mike mentioned this concept trailer we had done, and it was similar in some ways, but very different at the time as well. For those familiar, our film has a real political overtone, and it's layered throughout. There wasn't as much of a political component before, and it's less that the movie's political in nature and more that it serves as a great backdrop to explore social dynamics. And that was a new component that came in a new iteration of the script in the last couple of years, but it's gone through revisions and different drafts and everything. And it kind of found a really unique form shortly after she came from the woods. And we were like, this is the one we want to make. And it was time. So Erik, you want to jump in and say anything about?
Yeah, it's been the longest gestating, and it's gone through lots of drafts and it's evolved. I mean, early influences were, this movie is both like is a love letter to autumn and both like a love letter to and satire of small towns.
Yes.
And so it's always been that, and it's just kind of grown and matured
Right.
as we have, and got more pointed with some of the fun that we're having. Of course, there were pieces of our love for Scream in this, but we didn't want it to be a Scream
copy,
or cousin or anything. I mean, we wanted to capture the feeling of what it made us feel, which was the sense of mischief and play. We didn't want to be meta-referential or about movies or anything. We wanted to be about people and communities and what happens when ego takes over, and the way that people can use systems of power to say a lot without really saying anything. So that's where what I say the conflict and comedy of the movie comes. And I think in doing it, we were able to find a lot of that too, just because we had the right people around us in the doing of it.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to get to casting in just a minute, but I'm telling you, Catherine Curtin, man, boy, she's just, I mean, you can't help but not laugh with how she handles that character of the commissioner. One of my favorites of the movie. And I think about the satire and the comedic element of it as well. Now, I will say this: after I watched it the second time, I began to see, because you can't, when you go see it the first time, you won't necessarily, pick up on things. I'm not going to give anything away, but I will just say it this way: the second time I saw layers that you guys wrote in the story, and I picked up on so many things.
Thanks, man.
I'm serious, man. And this is the big deal to me as an audience member, the viewer, because it was like, oh my gosh. I mean, I'm seeing things happen on screen that it now makes so much sense. Like, I completely see what you guys are doing here. And I have to just tell you, to me, that's a great trait of solid storytelling, because it's attention to detail. And unfortunately, a lot of films, when this type of movies with slashers, whodunits, they don't always go to that level of detail. And so I want to compliment and thank you both for having thought through such layers of how this movie actually is made after you know the movie, after you see it the first time. And is this something you guys talked about together, or did it just flow naturally through your writing?
Maybe a little bit of both. I think first off, thank you very much for looking for it and seeing that, because there's a lot of conversation about that. And it's important for us to, especially on second watch and other watches, see a little bit more about what we're doing, because there's such intentionality in each scene and woven throughout. So when you pick up on something, and we're not going to get too much into the weeds here for
no,
but it matters a lot. So thank you. And
yes.
no, we talk through all of it, and we sort of operate on a similar wavelength. And sometimes Erik has like an urge to like tackle one moment, and I have an urge to tackle another, and there's this trust we have based on this shared kind of idea that we're both really like leaning into. Erik, do you?
I think that feeds into the work, because we were very communicative about that with everybody involved, and like Mike would do little visual foreshadowing, or even like Jack's performance, the way that he would move sometimes, and I have to be very careful here. But there were like little nuances that we would talk about Jack too, where it's like you wanted to carry yourself a certain way when you were doubling, to make certain things distinct, and match someone else. Yeah.
Yes. It's awesome. Let me just tell you, it's wow. It's like, okay, when the minute I saw that, well, I mean, I loved it the first time, so I saw it the second time. And when I really picked up on the things, I'm like, these guys, they've got it. When it comes to storytelling, they know how to write this well. And so I just had to tell you, thank you for writing that way. I appreciate that, because that's a mark of the greatness.
Thank you.
Well,
we didn't want to be overly heady or cerebral, but it's not just there. It's by design. I mean, there's a lot of craziness and a bunch of characters, but the mystery itself, we think it's pretty. We wanted the twist to be pretty sharp. It's just multiple layers. So I think there's a lot of just like peeling back and zooming out further and further. But ultimately, it's still a through line through the movie. And I really appreciate when folks notice that.
Yeah,
that was the goal.
Oh, it's awesome. You nailed it. Now, I also want to ask this question here, and don't worry, Mike and Jack, I'm coming. Don't worry. I just have to mention the scenery in this film is gorgeous. What was the process of securing locations and deciding this is the right town, this is the right look for where Founders Day would be happening?
There are a lot of pieces, logistical and aesthetic and otherwise, and so it was an ongoing conversation. And we knew some folks in this town, and it was close enough to certain other areas, but still kind of tucked away, because we don't like making movies. At least the full run of movies, like completely in the public eye or completely surrounded by places. We like having our own little ecosystem. We were able to do that there, and then it offered some specific things that we got to tailor scenes around and write stuff around. So it led there. I mean, Mike, were you part of before we decided, or was it like? I think you were very much a part of like how we tailored what we had and how we started to build things around what we had.
Yeah, I think by the time I jumped in, you guys had solidified that this was in all likelihood our choice. And I think the first scout that I jumped in on was like touring some of the facilities, taking a look at some of these places. You gave me a quick rundown of like what the scene work might be in some of these places. So we could like have a little bit of a checksum on like the logistics that surround them and how cost feasible they'd be and how simple it might be or challenging. And then I think shortly after that first time I came with you guys, you were like, okay, this makes sense. This is it.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Love it. Just great. I just really like the visuals. So it's great. And, anytime you're outdoors and I'm just curious, like, as far as is the amount of practical locations, was this predominantly practical or, for the shooting?
Yeah,
it was.
Which made some of Jack's work particularly, and Jack and Mike's work. But I guess I'll throw. Jack, I mean, you were in some tight spaces doing some big moves, right. And that's definitely a relationship between you and Mike too. But I just, I don't know if there's anything in particular that
but that's part of the fun of it, isn't it? You know, it's so easy if you can just fly away any wall or ceiling, or you know, there's no obstacles around it, but to try to find a way to still accomplish what we need in the time we have with the physical constraints of whatever the space is, it breeds an interesting form of creativity to figure those things out.
Oh man, I can only imagine. That just adds another layer of, man, just, you know, of your own talent, honestly, to be able to do those things in that scenario. Oh,
well, I mean, all of us. I mean, it's, you know, it's me saying to Erik, like, hey, you know, the shot we were really dreaming about, yeah, that ain't gonna work. And then him being like, okay, well, what if we were over here? Well, the blocking doesn't work for that. Okay, well, what if the blocking changed to this? And then, or what if it wasn't even in this space? And then, you know, we kind of go back and forth with the fires as they're mounting until we can find a way to put them out in a way that overall, I think in every instance that it's happened on this movie was beneficial for the movie. We've had a couple of things on other projects where, you know, we look at those scenes and we're like, oh, well, it might have been a little better if we had done it that way, but, you know, this still works. This is really good. And it serves the movie and, more importantly, our schedule. And we keep working and doing what we need to do this day. But I don't think that on Founders Day, we had any of those instances where, in hindsight, we're looking back at it saying, like, we even remember what the original thing could have been when we had to pivot. We're like, oh, this is always how it had to be. Like, what, they can't even imagine it a different way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, you know, I had met the production designer for Eli Roth's Thanksgiving, and he was telling me about, like, for the finale of the movie in this, where there's this dining room set, and all the walls behind both sides of the table, all the wall panels just comes right out, and the cameras go in. And that's what,
I mean, don't get me wrong. That'd be nice. That'd be real nice.
Right.
But there is some ingenuity. There's some ingenuity that comes with when you are restricted. I mean, I think there's a scene in a town hall office, and, like, we were figuring out the blocking, and, like, I mean, like Jack, we were working on, like, transitions and connective tissue between movements and trying to simplify it. And I think that you threw some thoughts, and that just made it. I don't know, just to make it work, because we had so little time, but we were definitely up against it there.
I would say that was my biggest challenge, at the very least, was the time constraint. I mean, how many days were we shooting?
12.
In there, 1.
12.
Well, in there, yeah.
So 12 total days. Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow, that is okay. That's quick. That is amazingly. You know what? That just adds a whole nother level, because knowing that this movie was accomplished in 12 days and the way it looks, I would have never have guessed 12.
Thanks, man.
No, seriously.
We don't lead with that, but it's I think that if you've seen it, hopefully it's something that is affecting, and I think it just goes to going back to the group that we've established. That's in no small part a reason why we're able to move with the with the flow that we do.
Yes. Wow. You got a rhythm, that's for sure. My goodness. And I have to ask, with being just 12, what was your average day like in terms of hours on set? You got to be burning every bit of the daylight oil you've got, right? Like, and as far as, like, I mean, of course, there's probably restrictions too.
I think we really kept it at 12. I think we like the standard 12. We really pushed to do that, and I think there was a fair amount of prep. But I don't know, guys. We were always on and talking about it, but I think we loved living in it, and we were all living together. We were in our own little bubble. But yeah, we are just we plan a lot, and we trust the people that are involved, and we shoot for the edit too, because Carson and I edit, and so there are times where it's like, we don't need to go for a full other take of this. We just need this piece of it. Right.
Wow. Well done. I keep saying that, but I'm serious. I really mean it. Well done. It's one of the biggest reasons why I reached out to you guys, because I'm like, okay, I have got to talk to them about this movie, because it needs a lot of attention in terms of recognition. And I'll do what I can do with my little sphere of influence over here on YouTube to hopefully bring some more eyes to it as much as possible.
Thanks.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Now, let's talk quickly, and then I'm going to get into some questions for Jack and Mike. Casting, Eric. We touched a little bit earlier on it. There is a great ensemble cast in this movie, and I felt like the characters were fun. They were, I mean, Naomi as our lead protagonist, I guess you'd say, she did a wonderful job. I mean, there was nobody that I didn't think did well in their roles. You know, of course, I already mentioned Catherine Curtin, who I just fell in love with her character. But tell me the casting. How long was the casting process for you to choose the right folks that you got?
It starts as these all start with people that are close to us. So I knew that I was going to do Oliver. Adam Webler, who works with us a lot, is as Deputy Miller, and Amy Hargreaves as Blair. We're kind of the first pieces. And Jack. I think Jack was a very early text, and we were like, "Do you just want to be the guy?" And he was like, "Yeah."
I don't blame you.
So we started with that, and we built out from there, from people within network and friends of friends that I knew, and then some people were auditions. But we take our time with that. I think that this truly is an ensemble movie, and while Allison is definitely the protagonist of the film, the movie really is about a community of people.
Yes.
So the town itself is in some ways the main character, and we wanted to make a community of people that felt that there was alignment, but also things were askew. Like you had a town full of, some people in the town are like the politicians, and others like caricatures, they're hot air balloons. And these hot air balloons over the course of the movie are getting popped out. And I think that's where a lot of the friction comes from between characters, and a lot of comedy comes from between characters, is that you have these kind of
larger than life,
like kind of absurdist types that are inhabiting the space with some normies. And I think that's very much by design, because there's this natural conflict that happens when that happens, that we think is very fun, and everything feels slightly askew and humorous and mischievous and kind of weird. And that's really what we were going for, and actors who kind of bought into that. But we do it in a kind of dry way, and like even like got it too. Like Mike, we didn't want to shoot this super like bright and poppy and like obviously like we're playing comedy, because that's not really what we were going for. But we didn't want it to feel super dark and drab. Yeah. Sure. So it's really riding that line between, like, I think somebody said it was like, it's subtle camp. And I think that having people that bought into the subtlety and the campiness of it.
Because I think what you're seeing is a lot of these characters taking themselves way too seriously. And it's less of a we're expecting you to, and more of a they are doing it themselves, and there's comedy that comes from that. And this little kind of like thing someone might do might conjure a laugh, or something else someone else might do, might push a button for someone else. But it's fun to see how it is with different crowds.
Well, I have to say one particular, and there's a lot, and I'm going to go back to Catherine, the commissioner. And I'm not going to say, I'm going to be real careful here, but there is a point in the movie where a particular victim is identified, is discovered and identified, and in just the straightest face and form, there's a lot of emotion when this person is found, and you're like, oh no, I feel really bad for this individual who found this person, crying and just melting down, and all Catherine says is, well, that's positive ID. And I lost it. I just had to mention that, because it's like it's stuck. It still sticks with me.
I'm so happy to hear that. It's become one of the lines of the movie. Like we've seen this multiple times in many different contexts, public screenings, festival screenings, and every time you see that line and there's a group in the room,
it brings the house down.
It's great. So Carson, Eric, whoever pinned that one, whichever one of you pinned that one, chef's kiss on that. That was perfect. Okay, so let me get to Mike here just for a minute for a couple of questions. Now Now, Mike, we talked a little bit about the setting and how difficult and challenging some of that was. But when it came to cinematography for the movie, like what's your method or approach to make it look kind of your own, like in your own style, if you will, but also meeting the expectations of Erik and what he's wanting to, how he's wanting it to look and on screen. So how do you meet that balance of your own creativeness and also getting it right for him?
Sure. Well, I think the first thing is that I start by picking his brain about a lot of stuff, and I have a lot of conversations with, him and Carson sometimes, and we'll watch some movies, we'll dissect some scenes and some chases and some kills and different types of scene work and see what we want to pull from different source material to kind of inspire like how we might approach something. And that also informs us when we go on our scouts to be like, oh, there's this cool moment that we could do like this other thing that we saw. But here's how we can twist it and like really conform it to like what this story is. But then continue on from there. I mean, there's certain instinctual things that I think no matter how hard I try to break from to try to keep doing original things, there are just certain things I fall into as a cinematographer with certain parts of what I think are just my style of working or what I like, how I like to shape the face, how I like to draw interest to or away from the background for different things. And some of that is very much informed by the scene and, whatever's happening contextually. But I think it's always kind of going back to like trying to visualize at the end of the day, like what this movie is supposed to be, how it's supposed to cut together. And then, finding those little pockets where something maybe a little more out of the box can happen that doesn't feel like it's detracting from the story. But still, serving whatever they're trying to get as best as possible. And then there are a few instances where like I'll pull something out that maybe they hadn't considered, or like I have a little bit of a tough time selling them on at first, and then they see it, and then I hear from Video Village just this eruption of everyone like big emotion, and then they'll just come running into the room, skipping and screaming and jumping and fist pumping in the air, like that, and I'm like, oh, okay, so that's a buy, that works. Okay, we'll do that then.
Nice. Now I have to ask you. Normally, I always ask my guests, what each of your favorite scary movies are. It's kind of like tradition around here. But I'm going to ask you something different. I would like to know, like, do you have a favorite cinematographer that you look up to, or is there a particular movie visually that you hold up very high regard in the way it was filmed?
That's very tricky because I feel like the answer will change based on so much like what I've done that day, where I'm at mentally. I do think that Roger Deakins is like, and this is a very cliche answer for a cinematographer, but I think that there's something interesting about the way that Roger Deakins approaches a lot of the scene work that he does, how he chooses his camera angles, placement of camera, and his lighting style is just something that I think I'm always striving to emulate to some regard, just the naturalism and how it transports an audience into the experience of being a part of the movie, as opposed to something that breaks it, that is a little more outside of the realm of like what you might experience if you were a part of this happenings going on. But then there's other cinematographers that are just, do amazing work and don't seem to have like specific styling. Like Matthew Libatique has this great range where even in the same year, he'll do two movies that you would never think were shot by the same person, just because there's no real core styling elements to it. So I think that there's something really admirable about kind of both strains and both paths for that.
Love it.
As far as like an individual movie, really hard to pick something.
It's an impossible question. It really is. I know it's, and like you say, it can change minute to minute, for sure.
Yeah.
100%. Well, thank you for sharing that, though. It gives us a little insight into your method and your mindset behind it. Now, Jack, I have to ask you. Well, first, I want to say before I ask you a question, you did an amazing job as the founder. Now, I'm a big slasher fan, and it's my favorite subgenre. And when I watch slasher movies, anytime it involves a masked killer that doesn't speak, it comes down to your movements. Oh my gosh. There you go. Erik is now the founder. Well, that's great. Oh, that's great. Is that screen used? I have
Mhm.
to ask.
Jack wore this all the time.
Bro, beautiful. Oh my
He's
God.
jealous of me holding it right now. He wants it back.
He's like, yeah, I want it.
Yeah, I've been asking for it.
That's awesome. Oh, that's killer. So Jack, you're in a position where you have to use your body movements, right? Your body language to do the communicating. And I know that has to be very challenging part of your role. I feel you did an excellent job in it. And
Thanks.
I really mean that. Yeah, you're welcome. Seriously. I would like to know how you personally approached this character, the founder, in terms of how you would execute your performance, right, of the character. Did you have any particular inspiration that you drew from a little bit? Like, say, I really love the way this one moves. And I mean, I'm just curious what your mindset was behind it.
Yeah. I think, I mean, you nailed it in the sense that it's an acting role that
Yes.
you don't have any lines and you don't have a face to express. So everything comes through the body in a role like that. I'm not sure I really went out of my way to take inspiration from anything, and more so I was looking to get away from a few things. Kind of the robotic, myopic Jason movement. I don't feel as though a character like Jason is particularly targeted in the sense that he has a goal, he has a mission, he's just out for blood. I think that in this case, I don't think I'm spoiling anything, that going into this movie, you have an understanding that the killer is somebody that people know. So if he's going after individuals, he's got a reason and he's thrilled to be doing it. So I tried to bring an energy that this killer is really enjoying this, has been waiting for this for a long time, and is smart.
Yes.
Yeah. And then it just comes through the movement, and I just did my best with what we had.
Oh man, it was you did a wonderful job. I really. Now I'm not spoiling anything here because if you've seen the trailer, you've already seen the weapon that is used. It's in the trailer. So in fact, let me see. Okay, yeah, I'm making sure. It's right. It's actually in the poster too. So I'm not spoiling anything here. Okay, but I have to say this. I enjoy seeing unique items and unusual things being used for weapons. And let me just say that I thought this specially equipped gavel was a great idea from, the writing creative side. But you, Jack, made that look so brutal. Because, when you see a gavel, it's not intimidating just to look at a gavel, right? For the most part. But in the hands of the founder, man, it is brutal. I mean, and you brought that thing to brutality. And I'm curious, when you read the script and you saw what the weapon of the founder was going to be, what did you think about it? Like, what was your first thoughts?
I was super excited just because, just the standard is a knife or a machete, some kind of blade. And that can be really definitive. It can kind of be a one and done in the sense that somebody is stabbed, that person is likely going to die. A gavel, it's not a weapon necessarily for a reason. You really got to want it. So when I did that, it was
that's true.
Yeah, you really have to go for it. So when I got the script from Erik, and was so excited that it was going to be something so small, and almost unassuming. I could walk down the street with it and wouldn't necessarily be flagged like a crazy person. So really went with the costume, went with the theme, and I knew I'd be able to like swing on people. So that would be cool.
Yeah.
And then there's a little surprise, I guess, twist with the weapon that makes it even more fun.
Yep. Yes, indeed. It's I'm telling you right now, if anyone thinks that a gavel cannot be brutal, get your tickets for the next showing of Founders Day tonight or tomorrow, and you'll find yourself mistaken. Trust me. Great job, Jack, on that. Seriously, as a character.
Thanks.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
Blast.
It's so great. Now, I do have to ask. I want to ask everyone. This is for everyone on the panel, and again, I'm going to prevent spoilers. So obviously, we're not going to mention names of victims or anything else like that. But I would love to know, to whatever level you're comfortable telling us, what was each of your favorite kills in the movie? I would love to know. So, Erik, can we start with you and go around? Is there was one particular that's your most favorite?
Oh, they're all my babies.
Right.
There's one in it that, if you've seen the trailer, I mean, there's a sequence in a movie theater that is very highly choreographed. That I just think everyone's work is really cool on, in terms of what we were able to get and how timed we were able to make it while still being believable to the music.
Nice. All right.
Yeah, I think we're all very proud of that one, and you guys might say the same. It's hard because I don't want to get too in the weeds again and
right
in the details, but there's a climactic scene later in the movie that I'm equally ecstatic about, and I think it's so fun the way it plays out. So I'll leave it there.
Yep. Okay. Jack, as the gavel wielder himself, any particular favorites that you can share without sharing too much?
I loved them all, but I would say I don't want to give too much away, but I'm going to mirror Carson's answer. I know the scene he's referring to, climactic, challenging for me. It's pretty dim, and you can't see anything in that mask. So rehearsal, a lot of full time behind that one, and I know that anyone I brought to see the movie loves that moment. So had a blast with that one. So much fun.
Oh man, I meant to ask you that earlier. The mask. There's one scene I can think of in the movie where it's pretty good close up on that mask, and you can see all of the sewing work in the eyes where it gets so thick, and that has to be tough, and that, especially with no peripheral, right?
Oh yeah, well. None. No, that was a constant issue. Issue. If I could get away with, in a given shot, not having it on, I still tried to keep it on just because it helps. But yeah, that was a challenge. Like, the first and foremost, stunts is about safety, especially when I'm working with the actor rather than a double. So that was a challenge. Not
very practical if you were actually going to kill someone, but damn, it looks good.
But
yeah, it does. Mike, do you share the answer, or is there something different, perhaps?
I have something different, I think, but again, without going into too much detail, there's a scene that we scouted and did some like previs shots for, which we don't storyboard much, just because we like the freedom on the day. But we had a very rigorous day, and there was a certain sequence we did a lot of prevising for, and I remember after shooting it, it felt very well accomplished and well done. And I remember going back to the hotel room and grabbing a frame grab and our previs shot and putting them next to each other and sending it off to Erik like that evening and being like, look how fucking close this is. Like,
wow.
Yeah.
Man.
But it just felt really good from more on the production side of things. And but yeah. Oh
man, that's great. And I can't, obviously when, maybe even backstage, I can, for those that are still here backstage after the stream, I can say, now tell me exactly the scene, because I'm thinking of several.
It's easier behind closed doors when we are with people who have already seen it, but obviously we don't want to see too much.
We don't want to do that. No. And I asked that, and that was a hard question. I probably shouldn't even have asked it, but you guys did an amazing job. Thank y'all for making an attempt to give that a good answer on that. You did. All right. Now we're going to start kind of easing our way to the exit line, guys, because I want to be respectful of all of their time. They're being very generous to be here. We got about 10 more minutes to go. So I do have a couple of questions from the audience that have come through I'm going to bring up in just a moment. But before I do that, I would like to actually, you know what? No, let me do one. Here's one that this is leaning towards where I'm heading. Paula sent in this question. Hey, Paula says, what was your most challenging moment on the set?
There are many, but I'll speak to one that we turned into one of the most positive moments. There was a day that we had to do a big crime scene montage, and there was going to be a downpour, but we couldn't reschedule, and we had to shoot through, and it ended up being the best thing that could have happened to us.
Yep.
To the point where we couldn't have paid for rain like this, and it just elevated everything we were doing. And there was where it was like, okay, we have not a lot of time, and I have to do this, and I'm like, Mike, can we have this emergency vehicle come in through the rain? And he's like, Erik, we're slow motion. It's not going to work. It's for a month. I'm like, okay. And then it was, and then everything just started going, and we just went and just shot all this stuff. And it was like one of the greatest moments of flow I've ever had in my life.
Wow. Sure. That's amazing. That's awesome, man. Yeah. That's when you say it's, it was meant to be.
Oh, it certainly was.
Sure. We had another moment that actually kind of shines through in a similar way, not as big production value wise, but we had a day we were coming down to the wire, and we really didn't want to go into overtime any of these days. And we had a kind of sizable dialogue scene to do. And I think we had like 20 minutes left in the day. And Erik goes through the blocking of like, this is what's going to happen. We have these people, they're going to move from here to here. This is where they have this much of the scene. And I'm counting it out. I'm like, that's 7-8 pieces. And he's like, can't be. And then we're just like crafty with our blocking and found a way to boil it down to, I think, 3 angles and an insert.
Yeah, we had like one person in the middle, and then everybody else talked from either side. And if anybody else like moved, they just moved to where the camera was already pointed. So there was this weird, pivot point to the whole thing. So it felt
but it feels so natural. It doesn't feel like we're making any sort of a cheat happen. It's just like, this is the shape of the conversation, and it just so happened to let the frame evolve in these really creative ways that just feels effortless. And we wrapped like 3 minutes early that day.
I would actually say in some ways elevates it. So in terms of while there's so much about like a stage and flyaway walls and extra time that can really be beneficial and wonderful, sometimes there's something fun about just being like, okay, you have X minutes and this much that you have to do. How are you going to do it? And finding a path. Sometimes you can think of a creative thing that you wouldn't have normally have to think of. Wow,
man, that's wonderful. Now here's another question that's come through for Jack. Actually, Cameron says, how did Jack's performance in Red Light influence his character in Founders Day?
Well, that's a reference to a short film I was a part of many years ago. I would say there's not a lot of overlap between those two things. Both characters are very persistent. And I guess, it takes both characters are highly motivated and highly persistent. So both of them go in with a plan and don't stop till they succeed, I guess.
There you go. I like it.
Jack is a former, I guess, still YouTube celebrity from his youth.
Yeah, we made short films. A friend of mine and myself. Yeah, so they're sticking around clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, man, if it ever gets on the internet, it's there, man. It's going to be there forever.
Yeah, better and for worse.
That one's haunting me.
That's right. Oh no,
it's good. Watch it.
Oh my gosh. All right, so let me ask you this, and then I'm going to move to just a couple of closing questions, and we'll wrap up. When you guys watched the finished film for the first time, you all got together. I'm assuming you got together for a premiere type event, right? Of some type, maybe together, or did you watch it separately, or?
It's a mix. It's a mix.
Yeah, we had a few different screenings.
Okay.
Dating back maybe half a year ago over the summer, we had a premiere in Miami at popcorn frights. And
Jack
then
was there for that.
Jack was there for that, and then Mike
Nice.
wasn't there for that, but Mike saw it with us in London. It's just a lot of fun to see it with different crowds, and we ended up at a couple other spots through the fall, including Toronto After Dark, which we got some other people that we got to see it with. So it was nice to share that. I don't think we got to uniformly get everyone in the same room at the same time, but it was nice to have people's first viewings, multiple times, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. So let me ask you this then. When you did see it that first time, that initial first viewing, and what did you each of you consider to be the most fulfilling or exciting part of the movie when you actually sing it with all the sound, everything's together, it's edited? And Mike, I'm going to start with you and go backwards to Erik.
Shit. The whole show, I get so much time to prepare, and now you flip it on its head.
Right.
It's hard to again, without giving too much away, but there's a scene that I think was a scene that Jack and Carson were talking about earlier with one of their favorite kills that I think just seeing that all completed with the final score and sound effects and all that just felt very well orchestrated and tight, and had just like, I think, a handful of shots that I was especially proud of. And when shooting them, thinking they would reinforce the story in a certain way, but there's always that little contingency of like, if it gets used from this part to this part, or like if they get out of it by a certain time, or if it's paired with a certain emotion of score. So it was just like a domino effect of all these things just perfectly lining up and being used appropriately with like the right underlining tones. And I was just like, oh wow, that really came out better than I could have imagined on the day.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, very good. And for being on the spot, but I've been putting Erik on the spot all night, being the first one up. So
he's used to that, though.
That's true. Jack, how about you, man? Is there something you were the most proud of after you saw the first, the finished product?
Yeah. I mean, I selfishly, I loved all of the kills. Like that was the thing I went in the most excited for. And they were amazing, but I left being so proud of how funny it was and how much of an ensemble it ended up being. Like,
yes,
that was shocking to me. So loved the kills, but I was glad it was so funny and so like entertaining.
Yeah. All right. Now, Carson, how about you as one of the co-writers? How did it, and editors?
I think I might struggle to think of a singular moment here, but I think the ambition of this one, we were very proud with how we were able to execute it, from conception to final stages of editing. We're piecing it together, and we feel this really cool scope. We feel the breadth of the town and this sort of lived-inness that we were striving for, and authenticity of it. That was really, something that resonated with us while we were in the editing room and having these conversations, because the movie both evolved and stayed the same in a really beautiful way once we got to the point of locking it up and completing it, and we were just content. We were happy with it.
Oh, it's awesome. Okay, Erik, how about you?
I think it's always really gratifying when you get vocal reactions, and I don't think no vocal reactions means that people aren't with it. But when you get vocal reactions and you get that affirmation that they are, whether it's a scream or a gasp or an or an I knew it or a laugh. Laughs are so great. Like it's so wonderful when you get them for stuff that you were planning on, like the Kathy Curtin line you were mentioning earlier.
Yes.
Like Carson and I love when people laugh at lines that we weren't expecting laughs at, because there are just natural quirks and oddities and strange things that happen
that you find in the moment,
that you find and that people discover, and that you find when it plays with the crowd. And that's like, coming from a theater background, you find that too. Like you find that there are laughs that when you're in previews for a show that you don't even know are there, and that to me just is a really cool thing, because then it really is living and breathing and engaging with people. And so to be in a room knowing that people are kind of in communication with the movie it's just like a really special thing.
Oh, absolutely. I can only imagine, your creation and your hearing those responses you were hoping and wanting to hear, and you're intending, going for it. That's awesome. Yeah, it's. I can only imagine how that feels. So ditto on that, man. That's great. Um, Now, as we start to close up right here, I just wanted to ask if if each of you could give just maybe a little advice, because we have a lot of I have a lot of audience members are aspiring in the theater, should be in acting and other things they want to do, filmmakers themselves, writers. So I'd like to ask each of you if you could share maybe just a little advice of what you would give someone who desires to be in the film business today in your respective roles. I think that would be awesome. Erik, let me start with you, and then we'll finish up with Mike.
Sure. I think in general, everybody, but especially people that want to do this, should be well watched. And I think asking themselves why certain things work for them, why they don't, and kind of developing nuance for their opinions, and realizing and thinking about authorial intent, and thinking about if things translate or don't translate, what components the audience plays in that, what component the way you watch something plays in that, and just think about their relationship as an audience member with art, and how things can translate. I think that will just help in general, just to develop a dimensionality to them as a creative and as a consumer. And I think both are kind of inextricably linked.
Excellent. Yeah. Great advice. Carson, how about you?
Yeah, I think staying authentic to you and what you know, because no one knows it better than you. And I think that's a really powerful thing. So I'll keep it brief, but that's always guided me and guided us. So I think just recognizing and leading with that.
Wonderful. Okay. Jack, how about you? If someone's wanting to get into the stunt business, stunt performer, actor, what advice would you give them to get started?
I'll go with stunts specifically because those are really distinct. But yeah, if it's something you're interested in, the community is not that big. So all I would say is you have to, number one, get training, because that's highly visible. You can tell pretty quickly whether or not someone's been putting in the work that they are saying they are. And then beyond that, be the person in the room who's the most willing to help, the kindest, the hardest working, and keep training. Like it's a small community, like I said. So just get your face out there and a reputation of being the guy.
Excellent. And other stunt performers I've had the pleasure of having on the channel here are stunt coordinators and performers. They all kind of share that similar advice in terms of, your attitude is so huge. And that will open and close doors for you. So that's great to hear.
Totally.
All right. Thank you, Jack. Now, Mike, how about you, man? Someone's really wanting to get into the business. They love the camera. What would you advise for them?
I would say from the technical end, because it's unfortunately it's two sides of things. I would say from the technical end, try to pay very close attention to everyone who's working around you. In as a cinematographer, the majority of your job is lighting as well. And having good collaborators to work with as a gaffer and as a key grip to help develop and shape what the lighting looks like and the tone. So I would say pay very close attention to everyone around you, both in the camera, grip, and electric departments, what they're doing, how they're doing it, why they're doing it. And then the other part of it is, as far as like just growing as a creative, surround yourself with collaborators that challenge you or distinctively have different ways that they approach doing things, so that you're constantly being pushed to step outside your comfort zones. And that'll help you to develop your craft a lot faster and a lot more efficiently, as well as bring you to expanded horizons that you might not have even thought to breach prior to having that conversation or having that job or having shot that scene.
Wonderful. Wow. Guys, great advice here, everyone in the audience. This is things that you can take from folks who they're living it, they're doing it, and you know what, they're having some great success. And once again, I want to stress to everyone in the audience, Founders Day, guys, this is the movie that you need to go see. It's still in theaters. Check your local listings, go online, look for a theater. It's in your own town. And if it's not, look to see where the closest showing is. It's really easy to do. And go drive an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. Go make the drive. It's worth your time. Just make it plans for it, make it an outing, and go watch a great movie by these awesome filmmakers tonight that you've had a chance to meet and who have given us a great insight into their roles in the picture. I thoroughly enjoy the film. Believe me, this is a purchase worthy film. As soon as it is on any of the formats, I'll buy it digitally, Ultra HD. I'll buy the Blu-ray. I will definitely want to have this the minute it comes out. I'll be looking for it, and it will be in my catalog. It'll be in my library for sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, gentlemen, if you could hang out, and I'll meet you backstage in just a second. So you can just hang tight for me. For everyone in the chat, though, we're going to go ahead and end the stream now. I thank you all for being here, and I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. And I look forward to seeing all of you guys in the audience on my next live stream. And my guest, again, Erik, Carson, Jack, Mike, thank you so, so much for giving your time tonight for all of us. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
All right, guys. I'll see you backstage. All right, everyone. Have a great rest of your night. We'll see you soon. Good night, guys.
Hey, you have been watching Craven Something Scary. This is Lee Waddell, the original Ghostface, thanking you for stopping by and checking it out.